Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So my name is Piers. I make property investing videos and business videos in this channel. Now I'd really appreciate if you're new to this channel. I think just over 60% of people who watch my videos are actually not subscribed. So if you could do me a massive favor and hit that subscribe button. So today's video is going to be a very detailed video about buying your first property or buying a property in UK. Now, one of the things a lot of people have been loving is because of my experience of owning an estate agent, running it, selling it, I have seen so many property transactions from first-time buyers. I've seen buy-to-let investors. I've seen people buying blocks of apartments, and what I've really seen is every journey has been massively different, and even buying houses just in general has been massively different. One of the reasons why a lot of time I've seen previously when I used to serve my first-time buyers or people who were buying property first time in the UK, they kind of completely miss some of the critical process of prior to actually applying for buying a property or applying for mortgages. And so there's certain details I want to cover today so you will be able to kind of take away. Now please make sure if you've got a pen and paper, make sure you're writing it down because it is going to be very helpful. Towards the end of the video, I've got a little free gift for you. It's literally a checklist of how to buy your first property. So towards the end of the video, I'll share that as well. So please make sure you're watching this video in details, and by the end of the video, you will see that checklist being very useful. So you can pretty much print that off and actually use it towards when you're buying the first property, and it will make your property buying journey a very, very seamless process. Now also I want to talk about some of the power team that's involved. Now you're going to deal with a lot of services between these processes, and also some of the cost. Who is going to charge you how much or roughly how much. I'll give you an indication as well, so you've got an understanding throughout this process not only to buy a property but the services or where to look for those services as well. So guys, please stay tuned and I will make sure I go through this detailed process of some of the critical kind of details of buying your first property in the UK. Now firstly, if you're watching this video, I would love to congratulate you because you're actually, that is the first process, because you're now looking at sources or resources that will be able to help you understand the buying process, which is obviously you're now already planning and your mindset saying that you're ready to go and buy a property, which is a great kind of start. And make sure you're writing notes. Now every time I've seen a lot of times, I said this to a lot of my first time buyers or people who's buying property, make sure you create a different notebook that every time you're learning or you see new details about property buying or property buying journey, make sure you're writing it down, so that what happens is when you're ready, you've got a tool that's already ready for you as well. So please make sure you're taking notes on this video because I'm going to share a lot more details. And again, like I said, towards the end of the video, you will get a checklist which has got pretty much everything that you will be able to kind of use it as a support and a tool from myself. So it's a little gift from myself to you. Well, let's talk about what a lot of people feel when they start thinking about buying their first property. I think the biggest challenge people think is the affordability, or they do not know how much they can get as a mortgage, as in they can afford to lend from a bank. So that's probably the biggest question a lot of first-time buyers actually always worry about. Now, one of the biggest suggestions I've always, throughout my journey in the last few years when people are buying properties, you've got to speak to an expert. Now, a lot of time people think that you've got to be ready, 100% ready to go and understand about buying property, but it's actually not the case. Remember guys, people are there to give you services. Now, one of the biggest things is there's mortgage brokers, there's banks. So if you bank with HSBC, NatWest, whoever you bank with, they've got their own mortgage team that be able to walk you through the process. Now, I know that every bank has or really understands the process of buying a property, and they always make sure that first-time buyers or people who are buying property, they're absolutely welcome. Now in this case, I know there's a lot more first-time buyers watching my video, and one of the biggest thing you can do is either you can go to your bank. Now for example, if you bank with HSBC, you go to HSBC, book an appointment and sit down with their mortgage broker. Now in that case, what happens is to find the best rate. Now obviously as a financial advising, I wouldn't be able to tell that, but I would advise you to speak to a financial advisor, is that you could then, once you find what HSBC will offer you, you could then go into a different bank. Now, that is the reason why there is mortgage broker. The mortgage broker are the ones that would actually cover that for you. Their job is, if I give you a kind of simple example, for your car, you go to, I think, a lot of people use Compare the Market or something like that online, and they've got a list of providers that come, and Compare the Market is kind of a broker. We've got mortgage brokers out there, and they will do the work for you. What that means is, obviously, they will charge you a fee, an application fee, but at the end of the day, they will do all the application for you and then speak to the right lenders to give you the best rate in the market. So one of the biggest suggestions I can give you with affordability is, please make sure you just literally pick up a phone to your bank or book an appointment with one of your banks that you've got, or even speak to a mortgage broker. There are mortgage brokers who will give you free consultation for, let's say, 20 minutes. And in that case, by watching all this video, you will have a list of questions that you'd like to ask, and please make sure, they've got certain criteria that you've got to meet as well. So the first thing I'd say is, do not wait to understand your affordability. You could pretty much do it right now and literally book your appointments and actually understand the process of financing and lending through the mortgage broker or through the banks. Well, believe me when I say this, that when you go through this affordability process, it's so much fun. If you've got the right people, the right team in place, like your mortgage broker or somebody who's going to help you through the lending process, now be somebody in the bank, it is an absolute fun process. But it's just to begin that it feels like you might not understand it properly, or that's why these teams are there to provide you with all the services. Now, the second thing I want to cover when I go through affordability is certain things that obviously your mortgage broker or your lenders will cover it, but I want to touch base on this video so that you have a kind of a prior understanding anyway. One of them, you must have heard it before, is your credit history. You've got to make sure your credit history is on point. Now, I know there are lenders who will look at okay credit history as well. Now, there's certain videos I have seen online on YouTube as well, very useful videos that will kind of give you a more understanding about how to improve your credit history. But that is very, very, very crucial. And one of the biggest things the bank will check is your credit history, or your lenders will check is your credit history. Now, it falls down to also your affordability in terms of your salary. Now, you might be self-employed. In that case, there's certain criteria that you've got to provide. Now, a lot of time I've seen a massive mistakes a lot of business owners or entrepreneurs made is they will start business, but then on the back of their mind, they've got 2 years to actually buy a property, but they will start a business now and they might not have tax account, self-employment SA 302. So make sure you are very, very, if you're self-employed, you speak to your accountant as soon as possible. Let them know what your plans are of buying or purchasing property so that they can give you the right advice. Now, if you're employed, you will need to be in certain, role for X amount of time. So if you're there for only during your probation, a lot of, lender would not like that. But if you've been in that company for a year or more and you can provide with the payslip and stuff, it's brilliant. So all these little criteria are matched. And they are all done through your lenders, and they're the one who will give you all this advice. But again, it's always good to know what sort of documentation you need in terms of that. Now, another thing which is very critical, and I think a lot of time people actually do not even think about this, is if you're purchasing a house, your electoral roll, if you're registered in that, your credit history is actually going to be improved. So, if you do it now and you expect it to move on, or you increase on credit history like literally today, it won't happen. So you've got to make sure you're registered properly on electoral roll for voting, and that will also help you kind of increase your credit history. So another thing that's kind of the little part of affordability falls down to things like this, which I've just mentioned in the video. Now, once you do that, I think I like to relax, because obviously you've now got a head around your affordability. Now it falls down to, there's a lot of people might be thinking, well, what about deposit, Piers? I don't know how to plan this. Now, deposit can be savings. I've had clients who's literally saved for 2-3 years. between partners and actually put that as a deposit. There's a lot of 5% deposit with Help to Buy scheme, so please make sure you're again checking a lot more details about those financing as well. But a lot of first-time buyers I know of are using those tools that's provided by government, and there's nothing wrong with that. But make sure you are checking off the repayments and stuff that you're gonna have a mortgage, and obviously if you go for Help to Buy loan, you've got to pay that back as well. So please make sure you're checking that detail further as well. The other thing is, you've got parents who gift you, a few thousands to buy your property. So you've got to again make sure that all of that things are provided properly. You might need a letter from your parents saying they've deposited you X amount of money to buy your house, and lenders would like to see that. Some lenders actually have a physical form that a parent would declare, or anyone who's given you the money would have to declare. So another little things is to now plan your deposit, and again, please speak to your lender or your broker so you can have a clear picture on your affordability in terms of you've got deposit, you've got if you need a Help to Buy scheme, so that's another column, and then your third one is your mortgage. So all that add up will give you a total understanding of your affordability and gives you an understanding of now what to do next. Well, with that all being said, now we move on to the fun part, which is viewing properties. Now you understand your affordability, you are now thinking, well, I need to go and see more properties, right? Now, I don't know if you are aware, and I know there's people out there who will understand this. There's platforms out there called Rightmove, which is a literally property listing website. There's Zoopla, there's On the Market, and I also like saying this, but again, if you're first-time buyers or if you're looking to buy a property, I would just walk into estate agent really, because nothing better than just walk into a estate agent office and letting them know that you're kind of ready, you've spoken to a broker, you've got your affordability ready, and estate agent love that because they know you're a serious buyer, and as long as you find a property that matches your requirements, you're actually a serious person to move forward with. So another reason why I say, again, first time buyers do not do this is they feel like they're going to waste someone's time. But guys, actually, believe me when I say that, just walk into stage and sit down, have a 10 minutes, sit down and say, this is exactly what you're looking for. Now, today's, again, video, I want to cover some of the crucial bit that when you're buying property, a lot of time, I think people forget that it's one of the biggest purchases of your life, and certain things that you've got to be aware of is when you're buying properties, you've got to make sure that you view quite a decent numbers of properties. Now, I know it might not match your criteria straight away, but the more properties you view, the more you get knowledge around viewing properties. Now, i.e., walk in, you start seeing different opportunity in different properties, and you kind of gives you a understanding and feeling of what you're looking at as an overhaul. So there's nothing called a perfect property when you first started looking for properties. So one of the biggest suggestions, and I know somebody who years back, they actually viewed, I think, just over 31 properties, and that was their first ever property. I know people's viewed, I've viewed hundreds of properties by now, or even thousands by now, because of this history I've got with being a estate agent and then property investing. But there's people out there who are now looking at buying property first time and have actually viewed over 30 properties before they buy their first home, because that gives you an understanding that property is not just about feelings. Yeah, the location's got to be right, the pricing's got to be right and stuff, but it's also about formula. It's just to make sure that that investment area is going to give you a capital appreciation at long term, because that's, if you look at the market trend of properties in the last few years, I can share you a story. I served somebody who bought his property, I think in the 1960s/70s for £2,000, and today's worth just over 230 or 250,000. So you can see what obviously with the money value changing and stuff, it's different. But to see it was worth 2,000 to now the value of the property is worth 250, is completely mind blowing. So just make sure that you're looking at the numbers of factors around viewing. Now, it all also falls down to, a lot of people forget that property buying can be a chain. So if you're buying a property that somebody is selling, we need to make sure that the purchase, and it might not be smooth, to be honest. I've seen people fall through deals in a year's time. They were waiting for somebody to complete. So the property they were about to buy, the seller was buying something else, and I think 8-9 months later they couldn't buy that property, which means the seller can't move, which means you can't buy it. So it's called chain in the property. So again, something I'd advise you is, when you're viewing property, you just ask the agent if there is a chain in the property. Now if you Google that, you will see a lot more detail about chain or no chain, or even in the property listings. Estate agent will put, say, no chain or chain in the property, which means obviously the seller doesn't need to buy anything. They can just sell it and you can just buy the property straight away. So there's certain processes that you're going to go through, and again, I'm sure if you've already bought a property before, you kind of relate to this and you will understand the process. So guys, one of the things I'd say is, again, remember, asking about chain or no chain, remember it's all about buying with a little bit of feelings because it's your first home, but also formula to say that that property is going to be worth the investment in long term as well. Also, remember, just keep viewing properties. Do not view just 1 or 2 before you make a decision. Just make sure you're viewing as many properties as you can, so that gives you an understanding about the types of property that you want to eventually get. So I hope this is helping you. Now we're going to move on to certainly a different process of actually putting offer, and again, some of the power teams that's going to be involved later on your purchase. Well, I'm going to show you something again that's going to completely kind of change the way you're thinking. Now, a lot of excitement is happening when you're buying your first property and you're constantly thinking about, right, you're going to be a homeowner and stuff, but there's little things that some of the homeowners miss or completely miss, and it kind of falls back to later on there will be problems, and you do not want that. So the 3 things I want to share is, first is make sure if you like a property, like I mentioned earlier, if you viewed 20 property and you liked one, make sure that property that you like, you are viewing it at least 3 times or more, because you want to get a feel of the property. You want to know kind of the details. I mean, I can't stress enough. Sometimes people only view once, they like the property, they put an offer, but then they will never view it till they actually pick up the keys. And that's a no-no. You've got to view it after you put an offer as well, to make sure that you've, certain things that you've not checked, you please make sure you are checking it. And estate agent will not mind, and so wouldn't the homeowner, because at the end of the day, you're making your biggest purchase and they want to sell that property. So please make sure you're viewing that property 3 times or more and in very detail. The second thing is, I call it position of strength. Always negotiate. Because I mentioned earlier about your affordability in terms of, you've spoken to your lender, you've got a mortgage in principle ready, and you've got your deposit in ready. What that means to a seller and estate agent means you are a serious buyer, because you've got proofs. And you can say that to estate agent, to say, look, I've got proofs of my deposit in my bank, and here's my mortgage in principle from the lender as well. So that way, you're actually now going to be in a position of strength to negotiate on price. Never ever pay the asking price. And again, one of the biggest things I say about buying it with formula, not with feelings, is sometimes people will go above and beyond paying that fees or the asking price. So what is the true market value of that property? You need to make sure, and tools like Rightmove actually shows you what has been sold in the area, kind of similar properties in the market, for how much and how long ago. So it's kind of public domain anyway. So please make sure you're checking those details and finding, or even in Zoopla, it's kind of an indication anyway. It's not a kind of realistic figure, but make sure you're doing a research on detailed pricing of what's been paid in the market quite recently on similar properties. So you're making sure that you're buying the property in the right price. And again, like I said, you will be in a position of strength. And last but not the least, check everything that's included in that purchase. Now, sometimes I've seen people going as silly as, oh, we never said, the washing machine or the cooker was included, which means the seller will then start charging you extra for the little bits and bobs which you never expected, and that might put you off the purchase. So please make sure you ask the estate agent if the white goods everything that you see apart their furnitures or private furnitures, that's fine. But anything else in the property is included, and make sure you've checked that and you get that in writing as well. So I hope this is, again, a little checklist that you can create while you're viewing your properties. Let's share you 3 reasons why property transaction fails in the UK, or property transaction falls through in the UK. So the first one is mortgage problem. That's one of the reasons why most of the property transaction falls through, because, you know, the buyer have got issue. And that's, again, me going back to what I said earlier. If you've got that already, you're in a lot more better position for negotiation, because you're a lot more serious buyer, and you can even mention that to the estate agent and the seller. The second one is a break in the chain. Now, this is, again, going back to what I said, is if somebody else, if your seller is buying another property, and that seller doesn't, you know, for whatever reason, they can't buy that property, that means you can't buy that property because the seller can't move anywhere else, right? So that is a chain. And again, like I said, please Google it. It's got much more detail, and it's always worth knowing that. That's probably the biggest question you want to ask the estate agent. Now, the last one is a problem in home survey. Now, earlier I did mention saying you should go and check the property, you know, as much as you can. But obviously, when lenders provide you with the lending, they do a home survey. Now, you can do your own private survey at a cost, but I would kind of suggest you just use the bank's one, because they, you know, they're basing on that kind of the lending situation, and that's, if there's a problem in the survey, that will, again, falls down to giving you a bad taste in the mouth about the property, and then that could effectively use you know, pulling out of the property deal. And that's another reason why property deals fall through. So again, quite 3 useful things. Now, let's say after all that, you've found a property, you've viewed it several times, you know, you've asked the right question to the estate agent, now you put the right offer with the negotiation tool that you have. Now we move on to what's next. Now, obviously, seller is going to agree to the price that you've offered, and the estate agent will create like a sales memorandum to make sure that they've got the property names, property address, sorry, your names, sellers and buyers. But in that position, they will now ask you for a solicitor that's going to act on behalf of your property purchase. Now, a lot of time, you will get your estate agent who will recommend you a solicitor, or you can, you know, by now you would have, I would say, spoken to a solicitor to get them ready or on board to work, you know, to work for you to complete this purchase. Now, seller and buyer would have their own solicitor. They cannot use the same solicitor. It will be a different solicitor working on behalf of you to actually complete the transaction. Now, in that case, obviously, we've spoken about, you know, home survey being happening through the banks. Your estate agent will be in, you know, communication with the whole of, you know, the seller, yourself, the kind of part, it will be a part of, you know, the valuation or the survey coming in, and also your solicitor who's gonna now take it further into the process. Now, I want to make sure that you can understand that your solicitors are your crucial part, again, of completing this based on the facts and the figures. Now, they will give you, again, one of the biggest kind of the fact about solicitors are you need to make sure that you have a meeting with them to let them know that obviously it's your first time buying property and you do not understand. Now, they will give you literally a checklist after checklist, because obviously they've served thousands of people already by now. So to make sure you've got like a detailed checklist and a good understanding of the processes that the solicitor will go through about the property, the checks, in that specific property that you'd be buying. While we go completely into the solicitor part, I just want to make sure about the home survey, and you have a kind of understanding. Now, why your lending is based on, you know, your bank will send a survey in to that property. Now, there will be a fee that you'll be paying for that anyhow, so that survey is very, very crucial. Now, it's a whole fact of bank making sure that they're not overpaying for that property, but at the same time they do not find any faults. That's very critical, that, you know, will stop lending to that property. So one of the things I would suggest is, please make sure that home survey report that you will receive is gone through properly. So you make sure that if you need the right to, help, you are speaking to the right people. But that home survey, I would heavily suggest you look at, it covers, sometimes I've seen people worrying about the roofs, and that roof, to fix that roof could cost you a good few £1,000s, and that could again top your expenses, or it goes back to again you reflect into your negotiation with the seller. So please make sure that little things like that in the home survey that comes out is always you're looking at it in detail, because that gives you an understanding again that the property that you're buying is not going to cost you money at a later date, because you've got to repair something, and there's much more detailed side of it as well. So I hope again the home survey part is again crucial, that you're looking through the report and really understanding the needs of the survey. Well, the last part of, again, I know you're going to speak to solicitor anyway, but just to give you an overview, the solicitor of who's going to represent you and the seller will exchange a lot of details, paperwork, legal contracts, and eventually you have two processes. One is the exchange of documents. So once you've agreed the right exchange documents, you will start, pretty much you will have your part that you sign off, and then obviously send it to the seller, and then the seller will sign it. And then you have a completion, which is obviously you complete the property. Now in this position, just to make sure that you have a kind of basic understanding, you will then your solicitor will ask you to put deposit in their bank. So they will first ask you to put a certain amount, and then the rest of the amount, or sometimes they'll ask you to put all the amount. So what you do is you put the deposit into their solicitor's account, and bank will then lend that money to your solicitor that's representing you, and they will complete the money transaction as well. So there's much more detail aside from that as well anyway, but it gives you an understanding that you won't be making payments. Your solicitor will be completing all that in a legal way, and also the bank will contact the solicitor as well. So there's a lot more kind of going around the circle between the communication between all parties, and they all really work hard for you to achieve this. Now, just to complete towards the end of the video, I wanted to make sure that you understand, you're the kind of the costing side of it as well. So just to give you an overview, estate agent, unless you're buying it through an auction, you will not be paying anything for a purchase so far at the moment anyway. Mortgage broker you will have to pay for their application fee. Now it really varies depending on broker to broker, but I've seen an average one being about £500. So that's what you're looking at, but please make sure again you speak to a broker and find out their fee. You've got your home survey that you'll be paying for. Now some of the lenders might offer a free survey, but depending on who you're using. But yes, there is a charge sometimes. Now it can go up to £1,000 depending on what the application is. So you've got that. And also then you've got your solicitor's fee, obviously that you pay a percentage deposit and percentage on completion. So once you've exchanged the property, you've exchanged the detail, you then set a keys pickup date with the solicitor and the estate agent, and as long as and the seller, obviously, as long as all it matches, obviously then you'll have a completion date where you complete the paperwork, complete the transaction, and as long as all parties happy, you'll set up an appointment with your estate agent to pick up your keys. Guys, thank you so much. I hope this video was useful. Again, I wanted to do this video because I've been asked by a lot of people, especially with my experience, and I want to go in detail as I can, but that's probably something I want to create by a process by process video. So please make sure if this video was useful, give a massive like to the video. I hope anything that you didn't understand, you can comment down below, so I'll be able to help you with that as well. Well, please make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Like I said, I'll be bringing more detailed video about property buying. But also, guys, I am so happy that I am hopefully a part of your journey of buying your first property, and absolutely good luck for your purchase.